Hey everybody, how's it going? I'm Chase Jarvis. Welcome to another episode of Chase Jarvis Live here on CreativeLive. You're tuned in to the 30 Days of Genius series. That series is where I sit down with the world's top creatives, entrepreneurs, and thought leaders and get actionable insights for you to apply to your hobby, career, and life. I hope you live a richer, more well-rounded, and exciting life full of knowledge from smart people like the person sitting next to me. Don't look yet, don't look. If you're just new to the 30 Days of Genius series, go to creativelive.com/30, the number 30 Days of Genius. All you have to do is click that blue button and you're gonna get a badass interview like this one in your inbox every morning for the next 30 days. My guest today is someone I've known Kevin for a little while. I said his name, so you probably know where I'm going with this one. He is the founder of several companies, two of which you'll know for sure, Digg and Revision 3. Then he went on to be a partner at Google Ventures and now is the CEO of Hodinkee here in New York City. My guest today is none other than Kevin Rose.
Thank you,
What's
sir.
up, bud? Fist bump.
Boom.
All right, welcome to the show. Kevin, thanks so much for coming.
Yeah, thanks for having me. Appreciate it.
Super good to have you on the show. We have been in the same friend circle for a long time. You actually made an investment into CreativeLive when you were a partner at Google Ventures.
That's right.
Thank you very much. Now you're onto something bigger and better, dare we say?
I'm all over the place.
You are?
Yeah.
Kevin moved to New York? What?
This has kind of been my career, though. I've bounced around and done a bunch of different things. I find that my brain is always one that wants to try new things every 6 months. Most of the time I just shelve stuff, and other times I go and try something, it blows up. Other times it works out. It's all over the place.
Okay, so Hodinkee, I want to go right at it.
Yeah.
I figured out how to pronounce it, and it was exactly what I thought.
Took you a little while before we got going here.
I had to say it 5 times off camera first. But I'm in no way, shape, or form a connoisseur. I appreciate fine watches, but why don't you tell me, and by extension the people at home, what is you're doing right now? You're CEO of Hodinkee, and what is Hodinkee?
It was kind of a weird move, no doubt, but honestly, it was one that I kind of fell into by chance. My father passed away and left me with a watch, and I know you were talking about your grandfather having some watches, things like that. I think that's typically how a younger generation kind of acquires these things. I had a watch that he left me, and obviously cherished, something that I wanted to hold on to for a very long time. Started kind of slowly researching things, reading about watches, and got the bug. I created an app for the App Store just for fun, just to see what would happen, that kind of pulled together all the different watch news from around the web in a really clean, consistent view, very readable. If you were reading these sites on mobile, a lot of them didn't even have modern style sheets, so they weren't presentable for a mobile audience. You had to do a lot of kind of pinching and zooming. So I fixed all that. And lo and behold, it kind of just blew up. It took off. Hundreds of thousands of people downloaded the app. It had 5-star reviews. It was has done really well. And then I was like, wow, there's actually a business here. And on top of that, there's the people that are curious about collecting watches, but then there are the really hardcore kind of luxury enthusiasts. And so it's a very kind of monetizable, lucrative market to get into.
Yeah, it's an opportunity because it's my understanding of it is it's very sort of A, unaggregated, B, it's about older manual timepieces, doesn't have a technology angle to it. Is that fair to say?
No, that's true. And I think that one of the things that we looked at when I was at Google Ventures were these verticals, these spaces where not a whole lot of attention had been, or technology had been applied to yet. Yeah. So, there's so many entrepreneurs going after what is the next Snapchat or what is the next Instagram. Not so many people looking to take over the luxury kind of watch space. So, it was just an experiment. It was something that I built in a couple weekends. I launched it, and it was clear by the uptake and the retention in the app that we were kind of onto something.
Yeah, there's there.
Right, exactly. And so took that app, merged it with Hodinkee, which had been around, which was the #1 kind of largest online news site for luxury watch news. We merged companies, and now I'm out here in New York. We've got a small staff of 14 people.
I love that
and we're
size.
just having perfect size, just having a lot of fun.
You can walk in, you can see everybody in one room.
Know everybody's name, we're all on the same page, it's great.
Awesome. So New York, you've been in Silicon Valley as long as and you had a little stint in LA, I think.
Yeah, that's right.
Around the TV stuff. But how's New York?
Yeah, New York's definitely. There's only a handful of places that I really enjoy in the States as far as like wanting to call home.
Yeah.
There's a lot of places I visit, but I think that like New York, Portland, San Francisco, Austin, LA, all great hubs. Chicago, like places that I could see myself living one day. And so you come out here. You get hooked on the pizza and the nightlife, and it's just like, it's game over.
It's impossible to go to bed at a decent hour in
It's
this
impossible.
city. It's impossible.
It's really tough.
So many, friends that are within, oh yeah, I'm just around the corner, or there's always something happening. I love that about New York, but I could see I'd be A, bad on your liver, C, bad on your, A to C? A, bad on your liver, B, bad on your sleep.
I think you had a little too much of A in that. Yeah, it's
been a rough couple of days.
Yeah, it's easy to get hooked on this kind of culture out here. All of the luxury conglomerates are out here, and so all the brands that we work with are within a stone's throw away. So it just made sense to be out here.
Awesome. So one of the things that I like to get on early here in this series of interviews, and in particular with you, the folks that are watching on the other end of this camera here, or these cameras rather, they identify as creative, entrepreneurial, freelancey, and or want to lean more into that. There's all kinds of data that says something like by the year 2020, I think something like 40% of the working age folks in the United States are going to have a side gig. So there's a lot of sort of side gig, want to do something. They're already in it and doing it and loving it and thriving.
Oh, that's been my life. This is great.
Yeah, and so your journey, one of the reasons I had to have you as a part of this series is because you have done so many different things: television, tech, now fine timepieces. Are you pursuing your interests? What's your sort of guiding principle? Just give us a little bit of backstory and how that you ended up here.
Yeah, I think that when I first got started, I was into technology, so I was always kind of a technologist. I studied computer science in school. And I moved up to the Bay Area to kind of pursue that dream, obviously working for other people.
Moved up as in you're from LA?
No, I moved up. I was living in Las Vegas at the time.
Okay.
My family moved out there when I was young.
Okay.
And so I hate to claim it as like, it's not my home. I was born in California, but it was a place that my dad found work, so we lived out there for a while. Moved up, lived in San Francisco, and at first was obviously just working for someone else.
Yeah.
And you kind of have to do that. That was kind of my way just to pay the bills. And I knew that the opportunity and the networking potential of the Bay Area was a thing.
Yeah.
And so to get up there and just kind of get into the coffee shop scene, start meeting fellow entrepreneurs, pull some inspiration from that, and then also figure out a way to eventually get into a company that I'd really enjoy working at, or start my own thing. And so that was kind of the place to be for technologists. Yeah. For me, it ended up taking a somewhat different route. I got into television, took the lowest paying job that there was just to kind of get my foot in the door, and then eventually started playing around with and trying ideas on the side. And so I had that base salary to kind of get me through and cover the rent. And then I would carve off a little bit of savings to go and try new projects. So with Digg, it was taking pretty much my life savings, which at the time was $10,000, and investing that in the idea. And so at the time I didn't have really, I had studied computer science, but it had been a few years. And so to go back and to relearn all the syntax and everything else that's involved, it's just like, I didn't want to do that.
Sure.
Especially when you're working a full-time job. And so I hired a freelance person to help me out on the coding side. I did the design myself. I hired a friend that was really good with HTML and CSS. Again, I could have done all those things, but it just made sense to kind of speed up the process.
Sure. And that you took your 10 grand towards
took the 10 grand, formed a little corporation around it. Didn't really know what I was doing, but I was like, you know what, I'm going to get this to a state where I can launch it and just see what happens. And so over the course of 3 months, built it out. Really pissed off a girlfriend at the time because she wanted to use that money for a house deposit and like had bigger plans. We weren't aligned in that front. Maybe that's why it didn't work out.
Fair.
But that was what it took to launch that project, and then that really started to take off. And I tried, honestly though, I tried a couple other projects prior to that. Another little shareware software application that I had built by a freelancer off of Elance out of Russia that I paid $1,000 for, and I won't go into details, it was kind of a stupid program, but I ended up making some money off of that by charging and selling it as shareware, meaning I charged like $15 a copy, but you could download it for free initially.
Okay.
And I realized, wow, there's something to this software thing. Like you write it once and you can make as many copies as you want. I should just go and explore that. So that's kind of what made me realize the power and potential there to go off and build products for the web, where you do the work up front one time and then you can make endless money depending on how many people want to consume that. So did that, and that's how Digg got started and really took off from there. And then eventually I went and took venture funding for it and grew the team and whatnot.
Sure. So there's like 10 things I want to put a
Sure.
pin in. One, that you talked about, like, well, first thing it is, obviously I got a job. Because I think there's so many folks out there that, I'm going all in. I'm just going to stop working and see if I can figure out this design thing or this photography thing or
Right.
this entrepreneurship thing. And I have people, after I give a talk or whatever on the internet, isn't that how you do it? I'm like, Jesus, no, that's like the worst plan.
Right.
Like, make it so that, because if you're thinking about trying to get enough food to survive, the last thing you're doing is thinking about all these great ideas and the way to be creative and entrepreneurial and sustainable. You're like, I need to survive. So
Right.
is it fair to say that you got to take care of your basic needs and then sort of explore from there?
Yeah, the only way I would say to not take care of your basic needs and not have to worry about that is if you're at the point where you're 23, you can always go back in with mom and dad,
Yeah.
and you can just who cares?
Sure. Or you're living in their basement.
Right,
yeah.
exactly. Then it doesn't really matter if you have those. But for me, it was like I had already moved out of home. I was up in the Bay Area. I needed to cover those basic expenses, so I didn't.
Which in the Bay Area is like 25 grand a
which
month.
is insane. It was even insane back then. So
So bad
it's
now.
crazy. But yeah, I mean, this is for me. It was a nights and weekends project. Like people would always say like, I don't know how you find time for that. And it's like, well, it's easy. I don't watch television.
Yeah.
Like
Don't do other shit.
Like
Focus on-
I work on my projects. I get off of work, I come home, I have dinner, and then I get back to work. It doesn't feel like work when it's something that you're super passionate about and you're excited about. So it doesn't have the same mental burden that like a 9-to-5 job does.
Yeah, that's again the exploration. You talked about that. That's another thing I wanted. Like, you tried several things. You admitted sort of, great, I tried this thing, a little bit worked. I made a little bit of money. It wasn't ultimately the thing that you poured your heart into, but that's okay.
Oh, absolutely.
Yeah, and I think again, so many people out there, they find something they're passionate about, or if you're wondering if you're passionate about something, you're not. I mean,
Right.
is that fair?
No, I think that's fair to say. And if you don't know, go out, fail fast, I think is a good way to do it. Like, go in there and give it your all and try, and then you'll know very quickly. This sucks.
If
This
shit
isn't
gets
for
hard,
me.
yeah. As soon as shit gets hard, if you're like, I'm not so sure this
Right.
design thing is for me, or the photography thing, or the whatever. So you putter in your 5 to 9. Iterate a couple times, hire some friends, basically cobble it together to push a V1 out there. You push V1 of Digg out, and
Yeah, basically at that point, the first couple weeks were solid growth, and then a couple things happened where we were breaking news stories faster than traditional media sources, because we had turned the user base, all of these registered members, into would-be reporters for us on the internet. And they were going out and finding these really cool blog articles and things that people weren't reporting on that were interesting little tidbits, and they would post them to Digg, and then all the community would vote them up to the front page. That's how Digg function is. The best content would flow to the front page based on the votes of the users. And we were breaking stuff, and Google was then indexing it, and we were showing up really high in search results. And that just created this crazy cycle that all of a sudden our servers were falling over. I had to figure out ways to go and buy more hardware, because back then there was not
you
really...
literally had a box of stuff.
That's right.
In the
There
corner.
wasn't Amazon Web Services or anything like there is today. So this was a lot of kind of like hustling to keep the servers up. And that's when it got really stressful. And thankfully, I was able to go out, and I had a friend that lived in LA that I was able to raise. He wrote me a check for $50,000. And then later I brought in a CEO to help out because it was my first rodeo. I'd never done any of this before.
Fair.
To help me go out and raise proper venture funding.
Got it. So following that, I think it had I ended up on the front page of Digg. You don't know these things because you put out some content, someone else finds it, all of a sudden your shit's crashing. And I remember that time very, very vividly. It was very impactful. So I'm going to fast forward revision 3.
Yeah.
Where was your idea for that? How, why?
Yeah, I mean, we basically, well, at the time, this was all coming. This is part of my ADD issue, and you can be my therapist for today.
Sure.
But the issue was that I was working at Tech TV. We'd moved to Los Angeles. I didn't really like the direction the company was going. It was getting a little bit more dumbed down than it was before. And so the internet was a thing, obviously. And so we were like, why don't we put more video online? And this is really before YouTube really blew up. Podcasting had just been announced as like a thing to do. And so we were like, let's just do content for the web and cut out the middleman and work directly with advertisers. And so myself and a couple other friends got together and was like, let's create an online TV like video network for this to kind of scratch our itch when it comes to all things technology. And so we created a series of different shows, one called System that we launched initially. We had another one called The Broken. There was my show with Digg Nation with Alex Albrecht that we did, and then a bunch more after that. And so we raised some money for that at the same time that Digg was raising money. And so we kind of had 2 companies that we were building at the same time.
Ooh, I didn't know that was in parallel.
Yeah.
What were you doing, back and forth?
It was mostly, David Prager kind of ran the things over at Revision 3, and I was just talent at that point and on the board as well. Got it. And so it was just too hard for me to run Digg and Revision 3 at the same time.
I get it.
And so I was just focusing on Digg.
So I'm going to keep fast forwarding. So you end up selling Revision 3 to Discovery.
That's right.
Maybe some other things happened. And then you end up at Google Ventures. Did you ever see yourself as a venture capitalist?
Gosh, I really enjoyed angel investing. So I'd been an angel investor prior to that and was lucky enough to back some great companies and have some decent outcomes there. And so I think that's what kind of attracted Google Ventures to the whole VC thing. And I admired their approach. They wanted to take a different, more hands-on approach with companies and really kind of leverage Google's resources to help out entrepreneurs. And Google just has tremendous amount of not just capital and cash to provide entrepreneurs, but expertise in a bunch of areas. Yeah. And so the cool thing about working at Google Ventures is that if an entrepreneur had an issue, like we had that special kind of magic red phone to pick up to go inside of Google and say, how can we solve this issue for this founder? And so, Bill Maris in creating Google Ventures, his kind of mandate was like, we have to be doing something positive for the internet ecosystem, in that if Larry or Sergey were starting Google today, they would turn to Google Ventures and raise money. So let's find the next kind of Larry and Sergey and help them out and help them scale. And so that was awesome. And I had a great time. I spent 3 years there. It was a tremendous amount of fun in seeing and growing that team. We did some great investments.
Thank you for investing in CreativeLive.
Uber at a pretty early.
I'm sorry, what? I'm not
you've never heard of them?
Yeah, it must be this new
transportation thing. Yeah. That was a crazy deal. I mean, that was our largest investment ever.
259 million?
250. Yeah, I think it is 9. It was 4 or 9, something like that. But to be in that room as we were kind of debating whether to do that deal was just pretty intense. It's a big check to write.
I'm out. I don't have that much money.
Yeah. But it was a lot of fun, and I think that you see a lot of these founders running into the same issues over and over again, and so anything you can do to kind of like not help them avoid it, because there's always something to be learned there, but like smooth out those kind of rough edges, I think is
the reason I was fast forwarding through your life at a pace that's probably unfair to your life.
That's all good.
To get to the Google Ventures part is because that's one of the things that you just said, which is like, you see the same things over and over again with founders. And remember, our audience is not just founders of tech companies, but they're founders of small mom and pop, entrepreneurial, solopreneur, freelance, worlds, you clearly have seen a lot of shit. So what are some common pitfalls? What should people who are interested in, again, sort of the people who are interested, not just, in going from 0 to 1, like, oh, I want to pursue my dream, but I've got a mortgage, I got all these other things. Like, there's probably a handful of pieces of advice that you would give, maybe a couple different groups that represent the people on the other side of the camera here. So
Yeah, which group do you want to talk about first?
do you have something? Do you have a preference, or where are you most like get most of your mojo?
I think that a couple of different things. I think that on the more mom and pop, and I just want to get something started. It seems that in chatting with would-be founders, they tend to think it's a lot more expensive and a lot more difficult, and that they need to kind of overproduce it if they're going to start something new. And it's like, well, I would need a lawyer to do this. I would need to get patents and trademarks and all these things. And they've heard all of these buzzwords floating around in the past.
Are awful buzzwords.
They're very expensive buzzwords.
Yeah.
And it's like, that's not necessarily what you need to do to launch a business. It doesn't need to be that complicated. You don't need to spend a ton of dollars doing it. And so that's kind of one camp. And then you have another set of founders that are more kind of technical, which are the tech folks that I would talk to oftentimes, that I feel that a lot of people are risk adverse. They have an idea, but they don't want to go and really take that leap. It's like they're looking for someone to kind of bless their idea. I think that's oftentimes a founder that I would run into, where I would give a talk at some place and then have people come up and say, hey, I have to show you something. I'm thinking about doing this. Should I go do this? And my answer has always been like, gosh, I remember so many people that I pitched Digg to or Revision 3 or any other idea that thought it was a horrible idea. Yeah. And had I just gone based on that feedback, I never would have created that product to begin with. And so, oftentimes the best founders, without a doubt, this is true, the best founders are the ones that see something before anyone else, including myself or anyone else. I mean, there's a reason why Uber was on Angel List and like trying to raise a round of funding.
No.
It's like people didn't see it. They were like, they had to go on Angel List and kind of put themselves out there and say like, hey, who wants to invest? And everyone's like, I don't know. They were able to see something before anyone else. And so as a founder, if you think you have that insight, that thing that you've been able to capture and see before anyone else, go run with it. Don't listen to anyone else and let them tell you it's a bad idea. And that's a hard thing for people to kind of adjust to and believe in.
Yeah, as a founder of a couple of things, I feel that there's so much resistance to new ideas. I can't think of a single thing. Even something as simple as my photography career included. Like, I was bound for a career in professional soccer, then medical school, and I just kept sort of pivoting in the traditional shit, mostly because I was scared shitless about the things that other people would do to judge me in that, wait, you were going to be a pro soccer player and then you wanted to be a photographer? Like, what the fuck is wrong with you?
Yeah. That's the fun of life, though. Yeah. I mean, for me, it's like, I know without a doubt that like when someone goes back and either looks at my Wikipedia page or wherever it happens to exist, if it does exist, of the things that I tried, I want there to be a history of so many failures. There's going to be a few wins in there, which is like awesome. But like, I don't know, the fun is in trying new things that no one else has done before. Like I like launching new apps that people think that's a little bit crazy or that's stupid. I don't know, it was my idea.
Yeah.
Like, who cares?
Yeah.
Like,
Show
at
me
least
yours.
I tried something.
For sure.
Like, so many people just sit there and they work for someone else and they hate their life every single day. It's like, I'm having fun. Even the failures are fun. You know what I'm talking about. Who cares? Like, you're having a good time doing it. And you always learn something.
For sure.
And I don't know. I think that's for me, that's what gets me excited.
So I think there's maybe even an abundance of programming in our culture now. Like, try it, fail fast. But there's still something that keeps people from doing it.
Sure.
That like there's still this barrier from 0 to 1. And I don't know, maybe you have some insight having talked to so many people who are trying to start out. Are the biggest barriers, is it sort of fear of public humiliation? Is it fear of loss of money? Is it fear of like shame and guilt? Like what are
I think it's all those things. I don't think there's one kind of straightforward answer there. I've seen it all over the place from founders that I have a great example. One that I won't name his name, but like he grew up in a very strict kind of tiger mom Chinese household, and when he dropped out of college to pursue his passion and he's a brilliant entrepreneur, like his family almost disowned him.
Wow.
And it was really brutal. And it was just like, that's like heartbreaking. Like he's going out there trying to like do something that is not the standard, path.
Sure.
And his family just like really cracked down on him. And it wasn't until he started having success there that they were like, oh, wait a second.
It's funny how that happens.
It's funny how that works out. Right. But it's like, think about all the people that don't necessarily, that might not have success. Yeah. And that's really difficult. And there's a big, I remember when I left Tech TV and I was going to start Digg, my parents were kind of just, what are you doing? Like, you're on television.
Why would you ever
leave television? That's as good as it gets. Yeah. Like, I can tell my friends to tune in to channel whatever on DirecTV, 754 or whatever it is, It's like always like crazy, it's not in the top 100, but
yeah.
It's like...
But it's so much about their will, not necessarily yours.
Oh, for sure.
That's part of that challenge, I feel like.
And then your spouse, too. It's like, I'm very lucky in that my wife is just like, she's always been very supportive, and she's always just been like a fellow entrepreneur, which is awesome.
Say hi to her for me. It's been a while.
We'll do.
She's awesome.
We'll do. And she's, she just loves it when I try crazy ideas. And like having that backbone and a partner who supports you is a big piece of it.
It's a huge piece. And I think it's fair to say that parents and spouses and it's fine that they're generally, no one's ever trying to pick the worst thing for you. That input is very natural for them because they care about you and they want you to be safe and all that stuff.
Oh, a lot of this comes from just straight love, like not wanting to see you hurt,
Yeah. And that is where either the stubborn bullheadedness of a founder, that maybe that's the difference between people who found companies and don't, is that either that brute ignorance or, I don't know, there's some force, and again, I'm trying to play back on my own experience, like, what was it? I've ranted on this show and other stages around the world about how powerful intuition is. Mm-hmm. Talk about intuition for you. No, you're here in New York. I like, hey, invite Kevin to the party. Oh, Kevin moved to New York. I was like, what? So you clearly are following some intuition. Talk about it in through your lens on yourself and your lens on other people who are interested in going from 0 to 1 or living their life dream. Yeah,
I think that we talked about this a lot at Google Ventures as well. It's like, it's the difference between kind of IQ and EQ. It's like the ability to...
IQ, intelligence quotient, EQ, emotional, for those of you who are new to the...
Yeah, so it's like a lot of people... it was really difficult for me to fund a founder that was just straight brilliant, but didn't have any way to convert that brilliance into a usable product for the end consumer. And so I think that, in a lot of the founders that I've run into that have been successful, they have this like internal kind of drive that something must exist, and it comes from a very creative place. Yeah. And I think that if you are one of those people that feel that, and you're like, I have this, I know this would work, that's kind of like your EQ kind of telling you like, hey, go create this thing. Like, this has to manifest out of you into some physical thing. And the best things that I've ever created, and some failures, have been all from that kind of bubbling up, that internal, like, I must do this. Like, this, if I don't do this, someone else will at some point in time. Yeah. And kind of closing your eyes and saying, if this works, this is where it'll be, and this is how many people will be enjoying it or using it 6, 12, 18 months out. And I can play that out in my head. Do you ever do that?
I do.
Like before I go to bed, I play out those scenarios in my head. Like, if this works, do you? Then,
oh yeah, absolutely. And I actually start with I have to scratch my own itch. I'll never start something, or in theory, I also am an angel investor. I tend to piggyback on your investments and Tim's investments and however I can get in sideways to some of these things. But I only participate in those things that I feel like I have insight, I can add value, or in particular the things that I found where I have to found it. I'm scratched. It's a problem that I either have experienced myself, or there are a lot of people, ideally, you're aware of a lot of people who have this problem. And the reason I put that lens on it is because shit is gonna get hard. It's gonna get really hard. And it, generally speaking, gets 10 times harder than you think hard is. And at that moment, when, if it's your own problem, you are more willing to keep going versus if it's a market opportunity, you're
Right.
gonna like, oh, okay, well, someone else is gonna have to solve this because they care a lot more about it,
Right.
and you're gonna fold up shop.
I mean, that's the difference between, I think we've all had those ideas. We're like, oh man, if I just went and built that, I'd make a lot of money.
Yeah.
It's not something you're passionate about, but you think like, I could make a lot of money if I went and did that, and it's just kind of like those people. Everybody has friends that are like that. We're all like that. We just think like, oh, that would be crazy. I bet you that'd sell, if I had a blender that did X, Y, or Z, but that's not like something that is really from that creative process. It's not something that's like, to your point, when it gets really difficult, it's just, you're going to dump it. That's the first thing it's going to go. Because you're like, oh, it's too stressful, I'm out,
For sure.
And I've seen that happen so many times.
Could you imagine if Travis and Ryan weren't up for a hell of a fight in founding Uber, or with Garrett, obviously, like that? I just remember how bullish they were, and there's probably no other group of people who were as fucking stubborn as those guys were, and the willingness to play through take on the New York Taxi Commission. Who wakes up in the morning and says, I got this great idea. I'm going to go fight this, whatever, 100-year-old, 75-year-old institution that has all kinds of, the underbelly, let's just say, is not all that pretty. And it's all kinds of power structure. Like, that's when I'm going to wake up and go to work and do that. They wanted it so badly. They saw both their own experience, like of wanting to be able to get around and having a shitty experience with cabs, and whether it's Paris or San Francisco, enough to care to go to work to fight that thing.
The thing is, with Travis, the CEO of Uber, it's, if you know him, he's a very, and you do, but I'm just saying in general.
Yeah, if one does.
If one does, he's a very kind of hard, badass, like gritty, kind of doesn't take no for an answer. And it's clear from his previous companies where he was sued by the RIAA and a bunch of other folks for like
for quarter of a trillion
or something. Like, you have to have that demeanor to run a business like that. I don't think I could do it.
Oh, no way.
It's just like, people want to kill him. Like, it's scary shit. Like, I don't know if we could bleep that out or something.
No, take it, roll with it.
But it's like, make sure that you match yourself up to the right type of business as well. Like, clearly, he was really passionate about it, got excited about it, wanted to go do it, and it was the right person for the job. Just happened to be the right person for the job at the same time. So it was a perfect match of original idea with founder, you know? And that doesn't always happen. But
being honest, I think a fair point to go back to, reestablish the context here. It's like, what are some things that you should think about when you're wanting to go from 0 to 1, or should I start something you care deeply about because it's going to get hard, something ideally you have inside knowledge, experience with. And Travis surely had a inside experience and all the legal stuff that he'd had with his previous companies.
Well, something that plays to your strengths too, right? Like if it requires you to go knocking on people's doors, you should be pretty comfortable talking to other people and knocking on doors, So just to make sure that matches up as well.
For sure. So you've got this deep passion, you got an overlap, you clearly have aptitude is probably the right word. You've got some aptitude. And then is it fair to say that you lumped, when I was trying to identify individual challenges, like is it fear of failure, is it loss of money, is it there's just a huge bucket and you call it fear. What helps people play through that?
Well, it's a good question. I think that sadly there's not, at some point you just kind of have to take that leap of faith. For me, it was going out and not going into debt when I took this kind of jump. And so I went out and had savings. I went out and saved up that $10,000 initially. because I had been in debt before and I didn't want to be in debt again. So I made a promise to myself I wouldn't go start a new venture until I had some savings to actually properly fund it. So I wasn't funding it all through credit card debt.
Got it.
But everybody's different. I wish there was one magic. What's it been for you to push through?
I think that intuition thing that I have sort of harped on a little bit, it is that I know this is a thing. I'm using this thing and I have a problem that I created the first iPhone app that shared photos to social networks years before Instagram. I'm taking a picture with the iPhone when it first came out, iPhone 1, before then actually Palm Trio. I don't tell too many people I was taking pictures with Palm Trio, 0.2 megapixels. But I'm like, well, let's just go to iPhone. You're like, so I have to take a picture, and then there's this other app that'll allow me to change that picture, this like bullshit Photoshop-ish thing, and then this new thing, Facebook. Now I have a Facebook thing, and I want to share it, and that's a different. There's like 10 different apps. Like, hey, I just want to share a picture. I want to take a picture. I want to add a cool effect, and I want to share it. And I'd like to do that with the touch of one button. It doesn't exist. Interesting. I had so many people tell me it was a terrible idea. I had literally had a hard time finding a developer that would do the work because what they wanted to develop was the next lighter app. Like, oh, dude, we're going to get 1 million downloads. I'm like, yeah, but that's not a business. The future of these small apps is going to be huge businesses. No, you're full of shit. That, I got 10 no's in trying to find someone that I was willing to pay 6 figures.
So you had to go out there and you just kept knocking on doors until you found a right developer to go out and build it.
Yes.
That was kind of my issue too. It's like I had a few checkboxes. Like I wanted to find a developer. So before I even created the business, I went out there and interviewed and found a developer. You got to like check those boxes and say, okay, I have my team assembled. That's going to help me get there. Okay, now I'm ready to go and do it.
I had turned my photography studio into somewhat of an incubator only because I feel like I had achieved enough in photography that I was satisfied with the trajectory of that business. It was growing year over year. I had the kinds of clients that I wanted to work for, and I wanted to do something like again, sort of seeing around the corner. That's what you're paid to do as a venture capitalist or as an entrepreneur. It's like, what is the next thing? And I'm thinking this photography thing is really interesting. I can see the future of mobile, light, small. The phrase I helped popularize the best camera is the one that's with you, that I own the trademark for. Like, applied that to mobile, and like, wow, now there's something here. And I'm looking around, I can see a way where this transcends language. It's immediate. What is the web? The web is universality. The web is immediacy. Like, maybe if I put these things together, there might be some there. And then, yeah, I felt like I had to bust my head to find some people to do some heavy lifting. And it did help that I had built up a community in photography so that when I launched that thing, I could point them at it.
Yeah.
But it was not pretty. It wasn't easy. It was expensive and hard. But I felt like it had to be made because I guess there's a designer friend of mine named James Victoria. He says, in the particular lies the universal. So if it's a problem that you feel like is commonplace, and there's enough people that have that problem, your idea is probably, it's not just your problem, it's probably the problem of many other people. Just kind of put that filter on there, and still many painful hours, days, weeks, months, years, but I think that's the lens for me. What about you?
Yeah, I'm kind of the same way. It's like when I'm meeting with founders, I always look for that one truth that they believe that no one else does. I mean, it's a thing that Peter Thiel said before, and several others. It's like you have to find that, and then you also have to believe it.
Yeah.
I remember when
cellularly, like deeply
totally.
Believe it.
When I saw Vine for the first time, I got really excited because Vine was a way to really create watchable videos. Like there was video content. You probably remember this. Like people would just hit record, and then they would just go on and on forever, and you weren't getting to the meat.
Yep.
And so, YouTube was great for little funny things and well-edited videos, but how were we able to like pare down these long videos on mobile in a fun way?
Yeah.
And so I remember when I met the founder of Vine, I was like, oh my God, you just like the touch to record, and when you let go, it stops, and then you can resume again, and then you have to let go again. You get just the best parts, and you cut out all the extra garbage. I was like, this is gonna be massive. And he's like, yeah, all the other investors think so too, and I'm oversubscribed. And I was like, damn it, I can't invest. But it's little things like that. It was like Twitter with the following. No one had the ability to have followers before. It was always a two-way relationship. On MySpace, you had to friend someone, they had to friend you back. And it was always two ways on Facebook. And then all of a sudden they introduced this idea of just being able to tail off of someone you don't know. Massive. Like
Boom.
those little tiny insights can be so huge. And so it's just trying to find those. And when you meet with founders, and you sit down for that initial cup of coffee, looking for those and be like, that's one I haven't seen before. That could be massive.
Big leap. Ready for this one?
Yeah.
Coffee.
Yes.
You just said sit down with the founder for a cup of coffee.
Yes.
I hail from a small ville in the Northwest called Seattle. Treats its coffee very seriously.
It does it though.
It does.
No, it doesn't.
It does. There was so much more
The
coffee.
coffee's okay
There
up
was
there.
so much more passionate coffee culture up there for 10 years
Where
before
is it
anyone else.
now though? It's all in San Francisco now.
There's a handful of great manufacturers.
Starbucks?
No, God no. They're all. It's all the small ones. It's the Cafe
I'm just
Vitas.
giving you-
It's.
just
I know
giving you
you are.
shit.
You're trying to. He's kicking me under the table. You guys don't. You can't see that. But you invested in some coffee.
Yes.
Let's talk about that for a second.
We want to talk about that, but so Blue Bottle, yes. Blue
Yeah.
Bottle is a little coffee company based out of San Francisco, and did an investment there, and it's been growing like crazy.
What a cool. I'll just confess. I was very excited. One opened up across the street. I'm at 10th and Market down there right across from
awesome.
Twitter, and there's a little one right down there, and they're like, it feels very. You feel lucky, and you get to have one of those right across the street from your house. Did you see it coming? Was it the founder? Was it the idea? Was it coffee? Was it like, this is an interesting application of venture to a thing that doesn't usually receive venture? Or what was it?
It's funny, speaking about like San Francisco being a hub for entrepreneurs to get together, the founder lived above me in a building when I was living in San Francisco back, in like 2002.
Wow.
Way back in the day when he was roasting beans on trays in like his oven and had a little tiny hole in the wall place that was just in Hayes Valley, and at the time it wasn't such a nice neighborhood.
Yeah.
And serving out of a shed where he just would like grind his beans there and just serve cups of coffee. But the founder, James, he's just such a brilliant, simple person and has a very clean aesthetic about everything that he does.
Yeah, the
You'll
stores are
notice that in
beautiful.
the store design. And he's always believed that just kind of producing and roasting locally, delivering those beans in a timely fashion to the storefront, and treating coffee, just taking it to the next level, and just doing the pour over right there. I mean, if you think about how coffee's been served forever, it's been in these big containers.
Big vat that you brew
Yeah,
hours
you,
before.
You,
yeah.
you brew at 6 a.m. and you serve it until 3 or whatever, or whenever it runs out. And it's just
It's
like,
almost unthinkable now, actually.
it is.
Yeah,
But it's funny is that wasn't the norm.
I know.
And then he started doing the pour over right in front of you, and you can taste the difference. It's not
for
like
sure.
it's like pinky up snobby kind of thing.
Yeah,
like
at all.
I mean, granted, it is a little bit more expensive, but
sure.
you do taste the difference.
All right, that was a little bit of an indulgence for me. We don't need to talk about coffee, but I knew that you were involved early in that. I never talked to you about it.
Yeah,
so,
it's the founder. The founder, you were asking like what it was.
Yeah.
It was just meeting him and just realizing that this guy cares more about coffee than anyone I've ever met and is doing it differently.
So do you back ideas or people?
I've seen some brilliant ideas just blow up, and a couple that I've backed, and so I tend to I try to find a healthy mix of both.
Okay.
But at the end of the day, it comes down to the founder can't scale forever. You can meet someone with a really brilliant idea, but they're only just one person, and they have to hire a remarkable team around them and surround themselves with good people,
Yes.
or the idea's not going to work. And that's important. It does come down to people.
Great. I'm going to also shift gears now, not to coffee. We touched on that, but it's going to be a little bit more about Kevin.
Okay.
So what do you feel like is your biggest strength as either as a founder or as an investor, or maybe not as a founder first, and then as someone who invests or supports others? What's your strength?
Gosh, I would say as a founder, it would probably be just the random ideas. It's a strength and a weakness in that I have too many of them. Most of them are probably crap, but every once in a while I kick out an idea that is unique and different, and can gain some traction. And I think that people have used and appreciated over time, which has been awesome.
Yeah, so vision.
So
basically.
vision, I think, is in original kind of ideas, which I love to do. I think that's my biggest strength for sure.
What about on the investor side?
On the investor side, it's helping other founders flesh those out a little bit. So, I love brainstorming sessions, and I love getting in a room with a whiteboard and some markers and a founder saying, hey, I'm thinking about building X, Y, and Z, and then just riffing with them and going back and forth and just like taking it, in many cases, too far.
Yeah.
But I love leaving a founder with a fresh kind of just perspective on things, and then 90% of the time they throw away everything that you say, but then every once in a while they'll implement something and it works, and then you're like, wow, that was awesome. That was a great collective session that we've had together. And I think that I work best that way with other people, and people have helped me that way as well. And that Daniel Burka, one of my friends for a very long time, and he was the early
awesome
designer on Digg with me.
Great designer. He's helped us with CreativeLive.
He created the yellow Digg button, the big kind of Digg button, and we were kind of going back and forth and just riffing off of ideas with each other, and we found that we were kind of collectively creating better products than either one of us did as a silo. And I find that when you find that partner in crime, and we haven't really touched on this as well, but if you can find a really good co-founder or partner that shares your vision, but not in a like, oh, I'm just like patting you on the back and saying, oh, your ideas are great, but will challenge you on certain things.
Yeah.
That's so powerful. Have you found?
My background is, in school at least, is in philosophy. And you may have heard of the Socratic method, which is basically a dialogue. And through a dialogue, there's a dialectic where you take an idea, thesis, you discuss the thesis, you debate, and then you synthesize different ideas to have a new thesis. And it's sort of this upward spiraling thing. And you basically do that through dialogue. And when you were saying, oh, I love with a whiteboard and there's the people who are on the outside of these cameras that are having, oh my God, like a room with a whiteboard and a pile of markers. I'm like, that's where I feel really, really comfortable. And absolutely 100%, having someone or a group to riff off of or with, way higher quality output for sure.
Yeah, absolutely.
So those are some strengths. How about personal habit? Is there something that you do that you feel like gives you an edge, or that if someone didn't know about you, they'd be surprised, like, oh wow, I had no idea that Kevin could do 20 one-legged squats, and that's the thing that he attributes to all his wisdom?
I take a lot of ice baths and ice showers.
Oh, the Wim Hof thing.
Yes.
So Ferris was like, you have to come climb this mountain in your underwear with us or something like that. He was trying to get me to go to Poland. I don't know, that never worked out. But you went and sat with him, right? You worked with him.
I've taken his course. I did his 10 weeks of training, and I've since been fully sold on the whole method, and now I'm all in on it.
It's breathing and ice and a bunch of stuff?
It's mostly, breathing and ice. So it's like, so there's this compound. I've since gone really crazy into the science piece of it.
Okay.
There's a scientist out there. Well, let me step back. Let me first just say
I got excited. I leaned too far.
Yeah, let me just say what it is for people out there. So basically, what this is it's a little body hack that a lot of people have started to use to kind of get more energy, a little bit more focus. Just overall, I would say a 20 or 30% boost in mood in general. And I would say that it's really helped me at work not to have that late afternoon cup of coffee. Mm-hmm. I just don't drink it at all anymore, which is crazy. I used to be hooked on coffee, and now it's not even needed.
Yeah.
So this is something that's been backed up by science, by a scientist by the name of Dr. Rhonda Patrick. Okay. She's studying all this stuff, and she has a great PDF on her website that you can check out. It's like a 10-page report that she does for free about cold therapy and sauna, actually. But it's a 10-week course by this guy by the name of Wim Hof, and he is the guy that kind of popularized this here last few years, and he holds all of the world records for exposure submerged in ice and swimming under several foot deep, like they break a hole in the ice and go down 100 yards later, break another hole, and he swims underneath the ice. and there's like people with oxygen and scuba equipment in case he passes out under the water. He's crazy. That kind of stuff, do not try at home, do not do.
Do not do.
But
disclaimer.
There has been, science has backed up the fact that your brain releases a substance called norepinephrine when you get hit with cold water. And that boosts the mood, it gives you energy, it makes you just feel amazing. And so I took this 10-week course. At the end, I was able to, as my last challenge, I got 12 bags of ice. I filled the bathtub full of water and ice, and I laid in it for 15 minutes without shivering or anything.
No shivering. And that's the objective, is no shivering?
The no shivering just means that I'm just used to it by now, and I'm burning fat rather than using shivering as a way. And I can also produce heat through breathing exercises from the inside out. It's part of yogic breathing. A lot of people that practice meditation can create their heat through their body by doing breathing exercises. Anyway, long story short, every twice a week now, I do a 5-minute ice shower, and it's just incredible amount of energy and just mood. It really, really helps you out. So I'm sold on that. So that's my one little body hack
I love it.
thing that I use.
I love it. I will confess that, I think maybe even January, no, maybe it was in the fall, I started taking cold showers.
Really?
So
how long?
I take a warm shower, I clean my body.
Okay.
And then I just go from what you think of when you think of a nice hot shower, and then I go to the absolute coldest that's possible in the shower.
For how long?
At nothing shorter than a minute. If I have more, I will do more. It's basically a function of how much time I've allotted in the morning.
How often are you doing this?
Every single day, without fail, 100%, and it has been game-changing for me. And
that's awesome.
So I played soccer in college, and this was long enough. Let's say it's in the '90s, and about halfway through my career, we started experimenting. And in your colleges, there's the medical aspect of it. We had a very, very high-end training.
Right.
That was it was the trainers that took care of the athletes, and so we were sort of like experimental. We were lab rats, basically. For the psychology department, for example, I did a lot of visualization early on, and that has stayed with me today and been very powerful. And ice baths were just starting out. So it used to the first year or two I was in college, we would ice from the shins down, and then we started getting in these baths, big steel, and it was miraculous. The inflammation in my body, the amount of pain when you're running 10 to 20 miles a day, half of it at sprints, and you're doing that for 300 days a year, it's hard on your body. Ice baths were a game changer. I'm a habit guy. I started really focusing on habits, and I brought that cold thing back, definitely through talking to Tim, he's been interested in the cold thing for, a number of years.
Yeah.
Instant game changer. I felt like I kind of was in a little bit of a slump, working really hard.
Yeah. You feel like you shed 7 years of your life. I feel like I have so much more energy. I'm like, wow, I'm younger.
I get out of the shower instantly in a better mood.
Yeah.
It
stays with you too, which is crazy.
The energy level's up.
Yeah.
You're kind of sleepy. I go from sleepy to, and I will confess, there are many times am I really gonna flip the switch to cold right now?
And you do it, and then you.
And I literally do not. It's not like there's a discussion sometimes, a negotiation, but there's never been a time where I was like, not today.
Right.
Cold. Amazing benefit.
It is crazy. You should read this 10-page report.
Okay.
Because it's all the science for what you're thinking.
Yeah.
It's all the science backed up, and she even goes in and shows the studies where how cold you need to be and for what duration that causes what effect in the increased levels. So.
I do feel actually sometimes disappointed now. I'm like, this is really not even cold. At a hotel, you can't control how cold the water gets.
Yeah.
Well, I'm just going to try and get the most. And so I'm sure I'm not scientifically going to the places where I need to go at all the time, but I know that a cold minute or 3 game changer.
Yeah.
So that's powerful medicine.
Yeah, there's a bunch of different ways to get there. And if you're doing it every day, that totally makes sense. Or you can do it a couple times a week, just longer duration or colder. Also, I've been doing cryotherapy as well, which is where you stand into liquid nitrogen and it freezes you at negative 240 degrees Celsius for 3 minutes. So you should try it. It's right up the street, by the way.
Really?
Yeah, and you can go today. And it's just a little 3-minute experiment, and it's awesome. And you walk out of there just feeling amazing.
Is it like a $40 juice that you can also get here in
yeah, right.
New York?
Yeah, almost all the juices are like crazy expensive
Oh my
here.
God. So, all right, that's something that people would know about you. How about, I'm a habit guy. I don't try and say I want to lose 10 pounds. I say I want to do these 10 things. And just so happens that if you do these 10 things, you can't actually not lose 10 pounds. Lose 10 pounds is a really brutish example. It's not the best example. Any habits in particular that you're excited about? Besides the ice stuff?
Besides the ice stuff, I make it a habit to track all of my various ideas in online journals. I keep like a little reminders app where I'll have them all different tabs for different types of things that I'm working on. So I have ideas in one tab, I have immediate work stuff, I have personal things. Those are just keeping things organized.
It frees up RAM when you're writing these.
It frees up RAM. That is so essential. And then honestly, a big thing for me this year is just saying no. Just knowing that if you're not going to be able to give 100% of your effort to something and you're going to do a half-assed job or you're just feeling a little bit stressed, focus on one, maybe two things max and say no to everything else. I just had a really awesome business opportunity that was a new venture that I was going to start this little company with a couple of friends. And I have no doubt it would be successful. It would be a fun little lifestyle business. But I had to, unfortunately, just say no. It's just because I felt too stretched. And I don't think you do your best work when you're that stretched or stressed.
Yeah.
And so you just have to be able to cut back and really focus on the important stuff.
Was there some lens through which you could say this would put me over the edge? Was it hours a day? Was it money in your pocket? Was it like, what was the lens? Because here's I'll just reverse the idea and say, I'm always going like, well, if I did this and this and this, here's how I could say yes.
Right.
Yeah. And I know that's it can be very toxic, but what's your lens to make sure that you don't get there?
Seth Godin just had a 15 reasons to say no post.
I was with Seth yesterday. It
Oh,
was
really?
Fun hanging out with him.
Yeah, so I put that in my most recent newsletter, and I have to pull that up for you, but his are spot on for the reasons why you should be saying no over saying yes.
Can you want to share a couple? Actually, first of all, what's the best way? I know you just started your newsletter. I'm excited to receive it. How do people do it?
Yeah, it's just I started a new newsletter. It's called thejournal.email. There's actually .email domain names now, which I didn't know, but I was like, hell yeah, I got it was free. I didn't have to pay some squatter, which is great. But it's only once a month.
Ooh,
yeah,
heavy.
So it's crazy because I put a lot of time and effort into every single product. I'll give you an example. This is kind of crazy. This is how obsessed. This actually goes to what people don't know about me.
Okay.
Is I get really obsessed about things and I go really deep. So I got obsessed with paper journals recently. Like, how you can buy those little journals like Moleskines or things like that.
Yeah, field notes,
Field notes, all that. And I was like, well, who makes the best journal? Like, who makes the best? Well, what does the best mean? Well, who makes the best paper quality? Who makes the best binding? And so I started researching it. I was reading different online forums. I started asking my Twitter followers. And then I got into where they sourced the paper from. And then I found a guy that has nothing but dedicated his life for the last 8 years writing a blog about stationery and pens. And he geeked out on me on a podcast for 45 minutes about paper quality and found these 2 little independent manufacturers in Japan that hand make their paper and make the best possible paper. And it's not expensive, it's just really hard to find. Okay. And so I found these awesome journals that are like $7, but they're impossible to find. And they're handmade in Japan. And that's the best pad of paper that will archival quality, stand the test of time, all that stuff.
And so that goes into your newsletter.
That goes into the newsletter, that review of that particular paper. And I do that for all different types of stuff, whether it's sneakers or cool backpacks or an app. Like last month I didn't have any app in the newsletter because I'm like, there's nothing that's worth your time. If I found something that was worth your time, I'd put it in here, but this month it's not. So I want to make it just super, super vetted and once a month.
All right, I took us on a right hook there. That's your newsletter, but what got us into the newsletter, do you remember?
We were talking about, what was it?
Seth.
yes at, and the things to say no. So
Yes.
his reasons to say no is in my last
Great.
newsletter.
So we'll go to your newsletter. That's how we can get it. Any teasers? Any, like, what were a couple of things that stood out?
Well, one thing was about the fact that if you can't, one was funny, is if you're not proud to tell your mom about it, don't say yes. The other one that is like, if you just really can't give it your all, like you can't give it your best work,
Yeah.
then why are you saying yes to it? Another one that I think I added to Seth's list that was from my list was that if you're doing it just to be nice, you probably shouldn't do it. Like so many times.
That ends up biting you in the ass.
You know how many times you've said yes to something
Oh.
and then the event comes due and you're sitting there and you're like, why did I say yes? And you're just doing it to be nice. Say no next time. Because you're not going to be your best person when you're doing the event or whatever it may be.
What about our inability to foresee happiness in the future? Turns out we're
absolutely.
really bad at
We're
predicting
really bad at that.
what will make us happy.
Yeah.
So is it a no-win situation?
It's got.
There's many things I've gone, that's going to be so fun. And then the day of, I'm like, fuck.
I think you just have to err on the side of saying no.
That's fair.
The other one too is that really drives me nuts that I've gotten a lot better at is, have you ever kind of just put off saying no? You know what I mean? You kind of like, you look at that email and you're like, oh, I want to say no to that, but I'm going to get back to that.
Oh.
And then like time goes by and you're guilted into it or something. The thing is, it's not fair to the receiver, right? The person that's asking you.
I
It's
know.
better to say no up front than to put it off. So I've gotten a lot better at that as well.
What's the best way to say no?
Just be straight up and just
Dear
say, I can't
Gary,
do it.
no.
Yeah,
I mean, come on, give me, like,
Oh gosh, the best way to say no. I mean, it really depends on what it is, but
hey man, I'm out of time. Hey man,
I
have the flu.
I did have the flu. I was supposed to make this yesterday, but I had the flu.
Brother,
you can see I'm sweating today.
I can tell, and it makes me want to let you out of the hot seat.
That's why I have
Turn
hot
down
tea.
these lights. You do have hot tea.
Yes.
No, you were a champ, man. I never put you in that category. Don't you sweat it. I mean, I just said don't sweat it, but I meant, like, never mind.
It's all good.
I'm glad that you're feeling better.
So saying no, it's funny. It's something we had to do a lot at Google Ventures because we would say no to like 98% of the founders that would come in.
Yeah.
And oftentimes, it's a struggle for anyone because, we had, I don't even know, I don't want to share too much of our internal stuff, but we would all sit down and say, how's the best way to say no to a founder that one is honest with them and kind of sets them in the right direction, and two, just kind of like, it's hard to be honest, but not, you don't want to be an asshole at the same time.
Yeah, of course. That's why I'm asking the question.
Yeah.
Because I think if more people in the world said no, probably more. And again, I actually like saying yes, but I like saying yes to, like, do you want to go to the park right now and throw the Frisbee? I'm like, oh, that'd probably be a good thing to do. All right, great. But I'm talking about saying no in order to focus. I mean, if we can nail this right now, I'm sure there's 10,000 or 100,000 people who are going to see this and say, God, that's helpful.
No, I mean,
say no to more things.
I think that the way that I do it is that I say I can't make it because I'm feeling that I'm overcommitted right now and I need to focus on these other things.
That's
and
the most honest and simple.
It's honest and it's true and it's relieving the stress. If I'm saying no to like a business opportunity, I'll typically say, I'd have to pull up the email just to figure out how I exactly word it, but I typically point out something that I don't necessarily agree with. Mm-hmm. And so I'll say, well,
a thesis or something.
Yeah, your thesis, and I don't quite see eye to eye with you on this for X, Y, or Z reason, but I wish you the best. And by the way, I frame it in a way that I've said no to a lot of things that have gone on to be very successful, which is absolutely true.
Yes.
I said no to Pinterest when I should have said yes. Like there's a few things like, and so, just me saying no shouldn't be a nail in the coffin.
Yeah, don't let this
right.
Yeah.
And there's a much more elegant way that I have when I'm not on Tamiflu that I can share with you that you can put in the show notes.
Fair.
But it's a way of saying I don't necessarily see eye to eye, but continue forward, march on, because there is potentially a massive business here.
Awesome. So that's business. There's smaller. I actually like the. I'm totally overcommitted right now, or XYZ, but I absolutely wish.
Because it's the truth in that
You're not going to get my best self, or
yeah. I mean, you feel stressed, and it'll wear you down. You'll get sick, like I am, or whatever it may be. It's like you don't want that, and they don't want that. So
fair enough. Any what's something that really bugs you? What's something that gets under your skin? And I'm a very positive person. I like socially, I'm not out there saying like I occasionally tweet not so nice things at airlines when you fly enough, you've got millions of miles, you understand when they're actually effing you. And so then I will send a not so nice spirited note out there. And funny, it's like, never mind, we'll go. So is there something that irks you that you don't often sort of decree? And would this therapy session be an opportunity for you to share something with the world?
Yeah, I mean, I think I have similar issues that it's where it's hard not to take it out on Twitter and just like lay into a company that's doing bad work.
Yeah.
I think that really drives me nuts when you have something that you're paying for. Free services, I don't mind so much. A lot of people, what I think is funny is how many people get upset at free services. That's the other thing.
That's the flip side of the same.
Because imagine like when you're giving away your videos and people are watching it, streaming for free,
yes.
and all of a sudden they're like, F you, because you're not doing something the way that I want you to do it. And you're like, my service is free.
Yeah.
How could you even be so upset?
There's so many other things you could be doing right now than typing a note to me about hacking my free.
Right, exactly. So I think that's a funny thing. And I tend not to get upset at free services, but paid ones, I do. But I've gotten a lot better at that. I try to zen it out a little bit. Yeah. I had this person that wrote me this really nasty email, and they were tearing into me, and it was really aggressive and weird. And I saw they had about.me profile at the bottom of the email, and I clicked on it, and I was about to write back as like a really scathing response. And I went to the about.me, and I read through their bio, and in paragraph 2, it said that they were schizophrenic. And that they were working through it, and they had written a book on how to conquer being schizophrenic and all of this stuff, and it was a free ebook. It wasn't published by anyone major. And I immediately realized, like, there's always another story on the other side of things.
Yeah. And it probably also has something to do with you. Like, if you are so so incensed that you want to respond, that's also probably a reason to look inside, right? Yeah.
And I took a deep breath, and I was like, oh my God, like email is such a emotionless thing.
Yeah, it's brutal.
It's you just have to realize that. So like when I actually have that email saved because I just gotta. It's such a good way to remember that, you know. So I try to use that as kind of a way to stay a little bit more grounded, and not.
I think that's why I'm asking the question, because I think it would be slightly healthier if I had sort of allowed myself a little bit more external frustration. I'm not quite sure the right way of doing it. That's like literally the MO behind the question.
Have you tried Calm, the app Calm? It's a great free meditation app. It is awesome.
Interesting.
Give it 15 minutes a day.
15. Oh, man, I already am a huge TM guy.
It's
so now I'm into.
Oh, you're doing.
Oh yeah, that's part of like I almost never have this urge. So when it does overcome. Sometimes I do need to overcome it though. That's, are you meditating?
I am, yeah.
I remember Ferris was up in
Seattle. It helps a ton.
Oh man, he was like, why are you so chilled out, man? And I was like, oh, I just, this is maybe 5 years ago. I was like, oh man, I've been meditating, and I don't mean to be presumptuous, but dare I say, you might try it. Yeah. He's like, no way, man, I'm gonna lose my edge. And I was like, or that edge is actually an anchor.
Right.
Just once you think about it. And we talked about it maybe once a year for like 3 or 4 years. And then I think a couple of us ganged up on him. And I think he likes it. You're a meditator?
Yeah. I've been doing it for a while. I find that it just really helps. And it takes a while. Like anything, it's not overnight. Right. But it definitely is another little kind of valve that you can turn to let off a little steam, And
something is better than nothing. Everyone's like, oh, if you can't meditate 20 minutes a day, twice a day, then it's not worth it. I totally don't believe that's true.
I don't believe that either.
This morning, I had to get up quite early, and I think I was in the like 14 or 15 minutes. I took a peek, and I was like, all right, the fact that I'm taking a peek, sort of, I'm pulled out of it. I can tell. That's just what I can do today.
Yeah.
Powerful medicine, though, is it not? Like that plus cold is
That
like
plus
literally.
cold, it's insane.
I know it's nuts, right?
It's really good.
a
I really
catapult.
hope that people that are watching this go and try that. It's a fun combo for sure.
So hacks are sort of nerdy things. Anything else that you want to leave people with? You said you're not eating from late in the night till early in the morning, or
That's a whole nother thing. Yeah, I'm.
I don't want to go to, like, yeah. There's a lot of.
I think the reason why you and myself and Tim and all of us are like in this circle of friends is because we all like to experiment and try crazy things.
Yeah, there's a curiosity.
And I think that a lot of. I think that your audience is probably a lot like that too.
For sure.
Creative people are like that. They like to try out.
There's an experimentation desire.
Absolutely. And so, intermittent fasting was really interesting. I believe fasting there's more and more data that's coming out saying the benefits of fasting. Again, Dr. Rhonda Patrick is kind of pioneering a lot of that stuff too, or at least the coverage of it. I've been trying to do 1 day a week of a 24-hour fast.
Wow.
And so that...
I literally, my stomach just rumbled when you said that.
Yeah,
there's some cue going on.
No, I mean it's fun. You feel really refreshed, and it puts you into a light state of ketosis, which is a whole other can of worms that we could get into. But intermittent fasting, I was first drawn into because Hugh Jackman used it to get ripped when he became the Wolverine. God. So as superficial and stupid as that sounds, that's how I first heard about it several years ago. And I had been drinking too much beer at the time, and I was like, I need to lose my beer gut. And so I tried this 16-hour-a-day fast for 2 weeks. It's basically as simple as not eating for 16 hours. And so after I had dinner, I hit start on my timer on my iPhone, and then after it went off at 16 hours, which is around noonish the next day, I could eat again. And I just lost a bunch of weight doing that. And I was like, wow, this actually kind of works. And then I started reading about the health benefits that go along with it. And then just recently, coming out in next month's or 2 months from now's newsletter in the journal, I interviewed the trainer, Hugh Jackman's trainer. Ooh. And so he talks about, I spent an hour with him, and he talks about crazy stuff and also intermittent fasting. And so that got me kind of back into it.
Awesome. People's advice for people who are stuck. And I know that you could give many pieces of advice, but you've clearly been stuck at different, creatively blocked. I'm trying to throw it all under not just creative, but just blocked. We can talk about any form of blockage, like help people, because theoretically, if you just did the numbers, like 50% of the people who are listening to this are blocked in some way, shape, or form right now in their lives. What do you do to get unstuck?
Yeah, I think that when you try to get unstuck is when you can sometimes get more stuck. Does that make sense at all?
Oh, for sure. Because then you're like over.
You're anxious about the fact that you're stuck, and then it just like leads to nothing creative comes out of that. And I feel that there was a couple times in my career where I just didn't really know how to break out of that rut. Mm-hmm. And so I just kept the norm, but I allowed myself to do whatever I wanted to do that was different than what I should be doing. Meaning, like, I was supposed to focus on creative technology things, and instead I went and I learned Fusion 360 so I could make furniture. I wanted to learn how to do more woodworking and furniture. And that had nothing to do with my day job.
At all.
At all. But it was just like I wanted
Kevin Rose, carpenter.
No, I wanted to make a chair, and I'm still working on that chair. It's not done yet. It looks pretty cool. I'm pretty happy with it. It should come out sometime in the next couple of years.
So is it fair to say do something wildly different that you're drawn to? Yeah.
It can still be creative, but like if you're a writer, like, take up yoga or something completely different, And I've noticed that with Tim and other people that I've worked with, like it's that break, that space that you give yourself that eventually allows that creative process to reboot in your normal life,
I was talking with the designer Stefan Sagmeister about what's the right number of projects, creative projects? There's some data that says that 5 is the magic number, and he just said was
5.
Yeah, 5 is the magic number of projects.
Wow, that seems like a lot.
5.
At the same time?
5, I just heard this data like 2 days ago. 5 is the right number. 7's too many. And I mean, obviously, it decides like what's the magnitude of a project. Is a project a chair plus building $1 billion business, or is it like
$5 billion businesses?
Right? Yeah, is it $5 billion businesses? So obviously, there's we got a sizing issue there. But what I think my experience as basically a lifelong professional creative is go do something different. Like when you feel like you're bashing your head and it's like 11 o'clock at night and you're like, no, I'm just gonna finish, I'm gonna push through. You look at that shit the next morning, you're like, that was stupid, that sucked, whatever the work that I outputted there. So just, if you can't afford to drop it and go pick something else, well, A, in that case, you should go to sleep. B, if you can just go to a different project, sometimes even the thing that we're thinking about over here can help that, but what's more than anything beneficial is just something different.
Right, totally.
That's my experience.
Yeah, and you may never go back there too. That's the other thing I realized.
It's like, ooh, I'm glad I'm done with that.
Like when I was big into Digg and social news and how that kind of, evolved, and that we had Reddit on the long tail of products, like take all the categories out, and which was a very smart move. Then you had Twitter on the kind of more recency, kind of eat away our breaking news lunch, and what made us like really substantial in that front. I just realized that like the world had evolved and changed and is going in so many different directions now. It's not worth even tackling again. Yeah. And so like I used to think about that obsessively, and I was like, okay, how can I rework it? How can I change it? And it's like, you know what?
How about just
I've creatively moved on. How about peace? And like thank you for being a part of my life for the time that you were with me, and like I hope to see you again someday. That was a nice venture.
I love it. I'm going to put a bow on this. What is something I haven't asked you that you think I should have, or that you'd like to leave the world?
Gosh, that's a good...
It's an easy way. It's a cop-out for me to end the interview is having you end it, actually.
I would say the only thing I would like to end with is that I hope people drink more green tea.
Green tea. You're a tea freak, aren't you? You love it.
I do drink a lot of coffee, but I've gotten back more into tea. Couple times I do love this. I do love the sauce from time to time.
Green tea. What's your favorite? Pu'er? Some like...
No, I would say go with some people don't know I'm actually a tea master.
A master?
I got certified.
Wow. Of course you did. One or the other, like, what are you going to do this weekend? Tea master certification class.
It took a little while. I'm not the highest level. I'm only level 2.
Got it.
There's three
I'm not
levels.
judging, brother. I'll you're still a tea master. Recommend one tea.
So I would say for people getting started, probably a sencha tea that you don't oversteep. So many people leave tea bags in for too long, and then all of a sudden you got this like really nasty taste, bitter. It's game over. So just like a quick 30 to 45 second infusion of like a nice Japanese green sencha tea. Is a good way. Yeah.
Spell it.
Sencha.
There you go.
Sencha. Cha means tea.
Green tea for you all. Thank you so much for joining us. I'm Chase Jarvis. This has been an hour and 20 minutes or so with
Thanks
Mr.
for
Kevin
having
Rose.
me.
I'm super grateful.
Appreciate
You're still getting over your thing, so I'm just going to let you sit over there.
It's all good.
Thanks a lot for coming, brother. Signing off. Another great interview coming tomorrow. Appreciate it.